There are so many videos out there bashing Donkey Kong 64. Somehow it feels like a game that was so popular when it was released has garnered the opposite of a cult following. A Tluk following, if you will. So many people these days are saying how bad the game is, how it's poorly designed, how the DK rap is a joke, how there are too many collectibles. Are you kidding me? This negativity actually is what sparked my interest and passion in creating my YouTube channel in the first place. Which you should subscribe if you aren't, by the way. But this hasn't been enough. I need to change the public opinion on this game. My name is Jiggylookback, and I am a Donkey Kong 64 defender. The game was released in 1999 as a sequel to the Donkey Kong Country series. The Country series was developed by Rare for the Super Nintendo and pushed the capabilities of the console by using pre-rendered graphics to give this game such a unique look. Initial development for what would be the 64 entry started off right at the release of Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. The team was working on a 2.5D style game before scrapping it and deciding that the leap in graphics didn't look as impressive as they hoped. Being inspired from its own catalog with Banjo-Kazooie, Rare decided to take Donkey Kong in a different dimension and use Kazooie's engine to build up DK. So DK64 goes the Banjo route and becomes a Collectathon style 3D platformer. Okay, cool. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Originally it was developed with the 64DD expansion in mind, which, as we all should know, never really became a thing, so it was transferred over to a base N64 cart. I want to address the 64 expansion pack requirement thing. The expansion pack was not used to correct a game-breaking memory leak glitch. The bug did exist, but they fixed that. The expansion pack was simply an accessory Nintendo wanted to push out and bundle it in with Donkey Kong. They used it to help run the game's dynamic lighting system. So DK64 is running and using the Banjo-Kazooie engine. It's looking good. And Tim Stamper, the co-founder of Rare, has the thought, hey, let's put in lots of collectibles. They would put in a ton, and go back to him, and he'd say, more! So much so that DK64 holds the Guinness World Record for most collectibles in a platformer game. Now fast forward to the game's release. The initial reviews were generally really positive. IGN praising it as a supersized version of Banjo-Kazooie, giving it a 9 out of 10. GameSpot also giving it a 9 out of 10, saying it has high quality adventure written all over it. So the sentiment at the time was, it's a pretty great game. So what's happened between then and now? Let's start with the first and most highly voiced complaint. I took to Twitter and got a huge response when I asked what people like and dislike about this game. Hands down, most replied answer was, too many collectibles. Although the games were highly praised, the reviews did say if you wanted to 100% the game, yes, it will be a chore. And that is absolutely true. It would be a chore to 100% this game, or rather, 101% it, which I have. But here's where I disagree with that sentiment. You don't have to collect it all. In fact, you don't even really need to come close. To 101% the game, you need to collect 201 golden bananas, 10 battle crowns, 20 banana fairies, 40 banana medals, 8 boss keys, 1 Nintendo coin, and 1 rare coin. And to get the 40 banana medals, you need to collect 75 bananas with each Kong in each level. There are 100 in each level per Kong, but you only need to collect 75, which amounts to 375 bananas per level. Across 8 levels, that's 3,000 colored bananas, but if you really want to collect them all, that's 4,000. Required to beat the game though, you need a total of 15 banana medals to unlock a minigame to get a coin to unlock the last boss fight. You can get 5 banana medals from beating minigames in the final level, so that leaves 10 to collect from the rest of the game, totaling to 750 colored bananas. A much smaller number. There are 201 golden bananas through the game, but to beat the game, you only need 100. There are 10 battle crowns and you only need 4. Those challenges are fun too. Blueprints aren't even required to beat the game, but they do help, so snake them as you find them. Do you see where I'm going with this? Yes, for those who want to 101% it, they can have a challenge and get a secret ending as a reward. But for the general player, they can beat the game without beating every challenge the game has to offer. I don't think having tons of content is the issue. The issue really stems around simply the organization of these collectibles within a level, which a lot of people labeled appropriately as backtracking. As a hypothetical example, say you find yourself following a pathway of yellow bananas as Donkey, only to lead to a door that Chunky needs to open, and then opening that door, seeing Tiny's purple bananas as the next path, and then ending it with a Lanky pad. These poor design choices require you to backtrack several times for even a small area. If they unified the banana system as one color and all Kongs could collect them, that one change would probably negate most complaints. Some people may think the same for ammo types, but I think maybe that should only apply to switches. Give us different uses for the guns. Example, maybe Chunky's pineapple bazooka could blow up big rocks, and Lanky's ammo could squish between gates. Some creative thinking and a bit more time probably could have fleshed that out a little bit better, but I still think the guns work and add an interesting element to the game. It's funny to think back then, the game was actually praised for having so many collectibles. GameSpot said it best: for those of you averse to the collect everything gameplay mentality, the game might come off as a chore to complete. But those of you who remotely liked Mario 64 or Banjo-Kazooie will be excited. As a kid, I actually loved collecting everything, and I spent hours upon hours upon hours collecting things in DK64, until I finally got to 101%. It really made me appreciate the world and all it had to offer by exploring every little nook and cranny. Back to my Twitter poll for a second common dislike: the mini-games. Generally, I'd say there's some that are fun. The minecart ones and the race to the finish style ones I enjoyed. But you also get ones like Bug Bash, where I could play back gameplay frame by frame, see that I hit the bug, and it just didn't squish. A slot machine, which is just lame, and the biggest culprit of them all, Beaver Bother. On this I can agree, the premise of the minigame is fine. You herd the beavers into the hole, but it just doesn't work right. It's almost based on luck. Sometimes you can lure beavers to the hole and they just won't go in. It's a rough one. Generally, other than those three though, I think the rest are fine, even if they're basic in some cases like Kremlin Kosh. There are 16 games total, 3 bad ones, 2 good ones, and then a slew of okay ones. You don't really have to beat these to beat the game either, purely for 101% again. Now for the final complaint I hear, it's about the cast, and I completely disagree with this one. DK64's cast is hilarious. I think it seems the reason why people are upset with it is because it was piggybacking off of the country games, and people expected Dixie and Kiddy Kong, and we ended up with Tiny and Chunky, their siblings. I gotta say, I only heard this sentiment from those who played Country 2 and 3 first. Personally, I played 64 first and I loved the whole cast, Tiny being one of my favorites, and everyone that said they played 64 before the Country series said they loved those characters as well. So I really think this is a nostalgia bias. I feel every one of these characters has some level of charm, and it adds depth. Rare even built it into the animations. I mean, look at Chunky, not wanting to be selected as a character and telling you to pick Tiny, and Tiny's so excited for you to pick her. The whole character select screen is great, and personally I never had an issue with the tag barrel placement either. It seemed like I always had one around that I could use to switch. Maybe slight backtracking, but not much. Now that I've talked about some of the common complaints, let me fill you in with some of the amazing things about this game. The music. From start to finish, this is some of Grant Kirkhope's best work in my opinion. From the open feel of DK Isle to the eerie music box in Frantic Factory, it screams Rare and screams great soundtrack. The sound design and everything also feels right at home. They did a great job of capturing the feel of DK Country and converting it into something fresh. I mean, just listen to Jungle Japes. So good. Another thing, the graphics are great. Maybe by today's standards, people are a little harsh, but this looked leagues above anything like Mario 64, and I'd argue looked even a bit better than Banjo-Kazooie. Even the cartoony effects of animations like going splat on the ground or hitting something with your coconut gun, and getting a comic book looking explosion. I love it all. The gameplay is also super solid. Some people complain about this game being buggy, but that hasn't really been my experience. I think I encountered one invisible wall in my playthrough in Gloomy Galleon, but other than that, the game played just fine, and I don't remember anything from my childhood either. The frame rate was pretty consistent throughout, and the actual controls themselves feel good, which is something to be said about 64 games from the 90s. Attacking, jumping, platforming all feel appropriate. They even utilize the crouch and C button combinations like Banjo to do alternative things like pull out your weapon, instrument, camera, or throw orange grenades. You have a plethora of moves, and each Kong has different abilities you'll need to utilize to get 101%. Donkey Kong 64 was highly praised when it released, and it feels like the negative sentiment really came later with people latching on to the too many collectibles comment. This must have happened somewhere online and generated a lot of buzz, and now everyone thinks the same thing. And while they may have a point at the same time, it's not something that really hinders the game, it just makes it hard to fully complete it. But for those like myself who love collectathons, love collecting, and love exploring in game worlds, it just adds value. I think generally the game works really well and people shouldn't hate on it. We need to take a second glance at Donkey Kong 64 and really appreciate it for what it was. Donkey Kong 64 is a good game. If you want to see a full-length analysis and review level by level, go check out my Analyzing Everything About Donkey Kong 64 video. Or if you're feeling spicy and you want to know what Kong's ammo is the most powerful of the bunch, go check out my Overthinking It episode. But before you go, please drop a like on this video to help push it out and spread the love of DK64 to the internet, and subscribe and hit that noti bell so you catch my future uploads. Until next time, have a good one.
Jiggylookback!